Okay, we're about halfway-ish through this, so what number are we getting today? Talks. Okay. Hang just does not want to happen, either here or in Baxter's route. She's like, nah, I'm good. I'm good. Oh, look, it's my beautiful room. Another placid summer day was drifting by. Your daydreams were chasing each other, not sticking around long enough to become a firm plan. But you really didn't mind that right now. A tapping worked its way into those dreams. Focusing more, you realized it was coming from your window. A grin popped on your face as though it had been waiting all day for this moment. Yes, Cove, what can I do for you? You and my window. Heading to the window, you could see Cove outside. His habit of climbing this way really was a true Coveism. He'd rather scale your house than wait the couple extra minutes for you to come down. Alright. Heave-ho! I'm small but mighty. You offered Cove a hand to help him. Once he was mostly inside, he took it to help steady the last bit of his entrance. He needed the help, despite how many times he'd done this.
Hey.
Hey, you. Hi, Cove. I'm glad you made it in okay. Cove laughed at that and took one last look at his exclusive entrance. He hummed with a teasing look on his face.
Yeah, I think it's pretty impressive that I've managed to keep this up without ending up with a new broken bone.
Oh no, don't joke about that.
Sorry.
I promise it'll be alright.
Cove's voice came out quietly with a strangely pleased smile on his face. Did something happen? Cove opened his mouth to answer, only to have your phone ringing cut him off. You both turned to where it rested a little further up on your bed. It was still face down, so you couldn't tell who was calling.
It's okay.
Your attention shot back to Cove. He smiled at you awkwardly.
Don't worry about it.
Go check. It could be important. I'll wait.
Thanks. You shuffled forward and scooped the little noisemaker into your hand. You flipped it over and checked the caller ID. It's Miranda. Nice, haven't seen those girls in ages.
You should answer it. I want to say hi too.
With a nod, you accepted the call and set it to speaker. Hi, Miranda.
Hi.
There was something off about her tone. Cove met your gaze and you saw the same confusion in his expression.
Have you heard from Terry? Or did you hear about her from Cove?
Huh? No, she hasn't called me. But Cove is with me right now.
Hey.
Oh, hi, Cove.
Is that what you were going to say? He shook his head no before realizing that it wasn't a good enough answer when one person couldn't actually see it.
No.
Terry hasn't called me today either. Is something wrong?
At that, Miranda couldn't hold herself together any longer. The muffled sobs from the other side of the line were unmistakable. Oh my, what happened?
Terry doesn't like me anymore, if she ever did.
What?
That doesn't sound right. You're probably her best friend out of all of us.
Yeah, why do you think that? She sniffled and there was a pause as you could hear her shift the phone to her other hand.
Terry was here the other night watching movies with me. We were up super late. She realized her parents probably went to bed, so they couldn't pick her up. My mom and dad were definitely asleep then. Dad works early. I tried telling her it was okay to just spend the night and she could text her parents what happened, but Terry really didn't want to.
You glanced at Cove. He looked equally unsure as you about where the story was going. It didn't sound like a friendship-ending situation.
I suggested things to make it easier if she was nervous, like she could sleep by herself in my room while I stayed somewhere else.
Yeah?
And I said we didn't have to sleep at all. We could have kept watching movies until one of our parents woke up. I wouldn't have minded. I know not everyone can do sleepovers, but Terry wouldn't even tell me what was really wrong or what I could do to help. I thought we could tell each other anything. I guess I was wrong.
Did she stay in the end?
No. We got too loud in the kitchen and my dad woke up. He offered to drive her home when he heard what was wrong. She texted me apologizing for my dad having to do that when he needed rest, but that was it. She isn't talking to me anymore.
You could hear every bit of the tears and heartbreak in Miranda's voice. This continued to be a shock for your neighbor, but Cove recovered and spoke gently.
I'm really sorry.
I mean,
There's no way Terry wanted to make you feel this bad, or that she's just done with your friendship because of this.
Miranda's sniffing continued. You hope she had plenty of tissues handy. It'll be okay. It had to be. You couldn't imagine any alternative. Miranda's voice sounded a little bit more collected after finishing her story, but you knew that the crying was far from being done.
I thought she'd have reached out to one of you by now. Maybe she's not talking to anyone.
Yeah.
Sorry for bothering you and Cove about this.
You're not bothering us.
right.
You can tell us things.
Thank you.
Her shaking voice finally conveyed a little optimism, or at least relief that she wasn't dealing with it entirely on her own.
Is that all right?
If you do hear from her or anything, could you let me know if she's alright?
We can.
Thanks. Let's talk later, okay? Bye.
Bye.
Bye. That didn't really seem like an especially productive point to end the call, though you also weren't sure where to go from there. Looking to Cove, his face seemed as lost as yours. With no alternative, you hung up and put your phone back on your bed. Cove crossed his arms, a frown creasing his face. He began to pace the length of your room, clearly trying to put the pieces together in his head in a way that made sense. I'm a little bit worried, not gonna lie. Biting the inside of your cheek, you stared at the ground. Hearing Miranda so distraught like that was not easy. And what about Terry? The uncertainty was tearing you up. The empty state of your head before learning this was not helping you now. You couldn't put two thoughts together, and flopping back on your bed, you stared into space. That's what I was thinking. I'm like, we should probably try calling Terry to see if she answers us.
We should probably try calling Terry.
Cove's voice managed to drag you back to some grounding. He'd stopped pacing, but you still saw a perturbed look on his face. Yeah, I'm worried about her too. He bounced up and moved to his side, ready to act on whatever plan you two could come up with. Cove started with the easiest thing. He pulled out his phone and called Terry. Cove let it ring, and ring, and ring, and ring. Terry didn't answer. There wasn't even an option to leave a voice message. Do any of us have her parents' number? Your shoulders slumped, and Cove looked even more troubled if that was possible. He turned to you as if for some lifeline.
Could you try calling? I'm gonna send a text, just like, hey, I was trying to reach you, call me, or something.
Yeah. You took up your phone once more. Unfortunately, after another set of interminable rings, the line went dead. No answer, no voicemail. Hanging up, you saw Cove visibly deflate. He rubbed his arm, eyes distant, openly struggling with the whole affair.
I don't like this at all. They're fighting, we barely know anything, and we're supposed to... just wait and see?
Despite it only being a minute since he texted Terry, Cove checked his phone again. He was desperate for progress, for something, and you frowned as you watched him. I wish there was the option to just put a hand on his shoulder and be like, it's gonna be okay. But, I don't know, I don't like any of these, really. I guess this is like the closest to it's gonna be okay. I'll try it. You need to try to relax. Cove stared hard at the screen as though he was trying to will a new message to appear. As your words sank in, his gaze slid over towards you. Just a little bit? Come on, you're working yourself up. Closing his eyes, he took a deep breath and released it slowly. It wasn't much, but you could see him ease up slightly. Good.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Cove was still gripping his phone with both hands as though it might fly away if he let go. He looked to you with almost painful earnestness.
Well...
Should we... What do we even say if we do hear from one of them?
His pacing resumed as he attempted to answer his own question. But it was written all over his face that he had no idea how to tackle any of this. He slowly came to another halt, like a gear winding down. Why do I always have to come up with things? I mean, yeah, like, we don't know why Terry was upset. It may have nothing to do with Miranda at all, so... How we get a hold of Terry, I don't know. We should find out Terry's side of the story. Nothing could be done until you knew what she thought of this, that much was certain. Cove nodded slightly in agreement. For several minutes, you both remained there in silence, drowning in your thoughts. Eventually, Cove turned around.
I'm gonna text Terry that we already know what's going on. Maybe she'll have an easier time talking to us because she won't have to pretend or explain.
I'm not liking the phrasing of any of these things. Like, they just seem too extreme. Like, I don't think that's the right way to go about this, like, to pretend you know. At the same time, I don't want to be like, you can't do that! You're pushing too much! Why are you fixated? Not, like, that's horrible! I think this is the best version, the best option that is like the closest to what I would say. The closest I would say would probably be like, that might get her attention, but it puts Miranda in a bad spot because we're kind of betraying her confidence, is how I would put it. Not like, you can't do that! But we'll go with this option. You can't do that. Miranda didn't say it was alright to admit she talked to us.
Miranda called you, asking if Terry had opened up about it, and then she told us about what happened in private. She didn't know if Terry would be okay with any of that.
That doesn't make it fine to do that to her. Terry isn't talking to Miranda at all. If you want to tell Terry, we could still talk to Miranda about it first.
I get it.
We could, but if Miranda wanted it to be a big secret, then she should have just said that. And if she does want to hide it, I don't think we should.
Are we having our first fight? You're being really mean. Okay, I'm gonna go with this one. Being tense doesn't mean it's okay to act like this.
Act like what?
You know what. His eyes grew wide at the implication, and you were sure your own had widened to match. He must have thought you viewed him terribly. Cove's eyes narrowed into sharp slits, a look that was almost unheard of for him to direct at you. His tone of voice was equally as cutting.
Is this what you want? For us to start fighting too?
Go home, Cove, you're drunk. Is it weird I'm actually getting heated about this? Arrgh. I kind of clam up when I'm angry to start. If I get really angry, oof, run away. But when like the anger is just starting, I'm like, I'll stare at you because I'm like trying to get a hold of my emotions and I am trying to not say something I'll regret. So this is probably the closest to what I would do. If this had been a fight in his mind, you'd already thrown in the towel. Your shoulders drooped down and you felt distraught over how badly this was going. For a moment, Cove closed his eyes and took a deep breath. A little bit of the tension in his shoulders released.
Sorry.
Well, You know what? You said sorry. I appreciate that.
Sorry for making things difficult.
You offered him a small, reassuring smile. He put his phone away to try making amends.
Do you still want to wait together? See if they try to talk to either of us again?
Of course. I don't want you to leave unless you want to. Okay. Well, that's good. Fight avoided. Phew. I hate conflict. A silence stretched on in what felt like hours. But it likely wasn't that long before there was a knock at your bedroom door and Mom peeked in. Hey, do you happen to have Terry's parents' number? Could you talk to them as like a parent, please? We're worried.
Just wanted to check in on you. Oh, Cove, when did you get here?
When she saw you were there, she opened the door all the way. Ma was standing there as well. She slipped past her wife to come inside your space.
What's going on?
We're okay. It's just Miranda called earlier. She and Terry are fighting, but none of us know what's going on with Terry. Your parents exchanged a meaningful look, though its meaning was lost on you. How do you guys know what's going on?
I'm so sorry.
Are you just like, fight in the friend group?
That's too bad. I'm sorry there's trouble with your friend, sweetie. Is there anything we can do to help?
Out of the corner of your eye, you saw Cove rub his arm awkwardly, unable to add anything. No, we're just waiting to see if Terry calls or texts or if Miranda does.
Well, we can at least help you take your mind off of things while you're waiting.
Yeah.
Another great idea, Lonnie. We can get the whole gang together for some quality time.
Mom gave you a soft smile and added,
This'll be good, especially since it might help make up for what happened at the farmer's market.
Oh, you're still trying to suck up to me for that, eh? Good.
Yes, it'll be wonderful. I'll go see what Liz is up to right now.
Excited, she fluttered a few steps away and then stopped. She pivoted on her heels and raised a single finger, flashing a big smile at Cove.
It's no trouble.
And of course, Cliff will be welcome too.
Knowing your family was always there for you, that couldn't be underestimated. In fact, it meant everything to you that your moms cared so much. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. That's nice of you.
You're welcome.
Don't sweat it, not so kiddos. Leave things to us.
Not so, kiddos.
Just relax and we'll call you when it's all together.
You nodded and your moms dispersed for now, springing into action for their impromptu get-together. You flopped down on your bed, feeling like you could sink into it and disappear. Cove, meanwhile, took a spot on a chair off to the side. You sighed at the same time, and Cove's mouth pulled into a bent smile at that. He gave his phone another quick check, and his eyebrows furrowed. Still nothing?
Yup. This is crap, huh?
Yep. Cove chewed the inside of his cheek, as if to mimic the stress that was clearly eating away at him. Cove, what's wrong? What's really wrong? One disagreement doesn't make you act like this. That got a pointed pause in his movement. Cove was carefully trying to put his thoughts together. He spoke in a fragile voice.
When people you care about, when they're unhappy with each other, there's nothing you can do. At least when you're in a fight yourself, you have some responsibility, some control over it all. I wish it didn't have to happen, but that is impossible. So, oh well, I guess.
His attempt at giving a nonchalant shrug after that was pitiable. It's whatever. Yeah, it makes me feel horrible too. In your lap, your hands momentarily curled into fists. This kind of powerlessness. It wore you down. You looked to Cove and were reassured by his understanding nod. But is it because of what happened with your parents? You reflected on everything you had learned about Mr. Holden, Kyra, their relationship, and their son. They went through a lot. Cove ran a hand through his hair, a strained smile spreading across his lips. For him, this pain struck close to his heart. Just as quickly as it had come, his smile was gone, lost amidst his faraway gaze.
Yeah, you know what happened. It's like my parents.
He whispered his thoughts distantly, almost unconcerned with whether you could hear them or not.
That's...
They used to fight all the time.
I'm sorry.
Molly. Don't worry about it.
It's okay.
Cove gazed reassuringly at you.
It's not like that anymore, right? Things are so different now. Better. I don't even really think about it.
Again, the sorrow reasserted itself. When he continued, you could barely hear him.
Though, I guess it's pretty obvious I haven't forgotten either.
It's hug time. You crossed the room, picking up a little bit of speed, and Cove's eyes widened. He shot out of the chair and stood waiting for you with a nonplussed look. When you collided into him, wrapping your arms around his middle and knocking the air out of his lungs, all mystery was gone. Cove squeaked, "Look at his tears, my poor boy."
Oh.
Oh, a hug. He returned the gesture longingly. Exhaling, you pressed your cheek into the warmth of his chest. The tension stuck inside you released like a river flowing into the ocean that was Cove. The firmness of his hug told you Cove didn't plan on letting go anytime soon. You both needed the comfort and closeness for just a little bit longer. When he finally did, the two of you took a seat again, but this time side by side on your bed.
Well...
Today was a lot, huh?
Yeah, it was. Boop. Resting the side of your head onto his shoulder, you glanced up at his face. Cove watched you affectionately. In that gentle gaze, you finally felt like everything was going to be okay. No matter what happens, we can make it work. His mouth pulled into a bent smile at that. You chuckled, resting your head comfortably back on his shoulder.
Me too.
And for a while, you stayed like that. A comfortable quiet fell between you, and the sun fell with it. Moms, what happened to you guys? You just disappeared. The warming calm ended when Cove gasped sharply. You spun, half expecting to find him nursing an injury, but instead found him staring straight ahead. What?
Oh my god.
I think my phone just vibrated.
Do you want to check?
Yeah.
He patted his pockets, fumbling in his panic, and yanked the phone out. Finds out it's his dad calling. Like, dang it! The force of the action nearly catapulted the device out of his grip entirely, but he caught it just in time. His eyes honed in on the screen. Oh, thank goodness.
It's Terry! Thank God. She says she's sorry.
He looked back to you, eyes wide as his nerves started to fray once more.
What should I say?
Like, I do want her to call us. Yeah. Yep. Tell her to call us.
Okay.
He nodded and began typing. Cove was aware that his blunt words could sometimes make others bristle, even though he never meant them to hurt. Cove's phone buzzed nearly as soon as the message was sent.
Oh, it's Terry again. She's talking to us.
You leaned in, watching the conversation unfold on Cove's screen.
Right.
She's gonna actually call.
Cove held his breath as you waited. His circle of friends had always been small, so he'd managed to avoid the stress of seeing friends fighting. You suspected he was feeling this even more keenly, both because this was so uncommon and the friends so important to him. His phone rang out. Cove jammed the answer button. He switched the phone into speaker mode, allowing you to participate in the conversation. But despite his immediate reaction, his voice lacked the same resolve when he spoke.
Hey.
It was tentative, a white flag fluttering in the wind.
Molly is here too.
Hi.
Hey.
Hey, buddies.
Terry's voice was barely recognizable without her usual quick patter and energy.
Are you okay?
I don't know. Probably not.
Cove tensed, his free hand coiling into an anxious fist.
What happened?
You heard Terry sigh over the phone as she unburdened herself.
Pretty much, I was at Randy's house. We decided to watch some movies she super liked that I'd never even seen before. Turns out there's a lot of those. We watched one, then another, and another. We were having so much fun. Each time one finished, she had another one to share with me. I didn't really think about the time. I only wanted to say yes to Randy and watch her movies.
She spoke wistfully, but her words were full of affection.
It was Randy, you know? I wasn't thinking about my schedule or what time it was.
Yeah.
Then I finally saw the time. And oh no, it was way too late! I already knew I couldn't stay.
She took a deep breath, her voice becoming softer when she resumed talking.
I was so stressed out. I just couldn't deal with it. Miranda wanted to help. She kept coming up with ways to make it better and trying to figure out why I was so upset and stuff. I was trying to answer her questions, and there were so many, but I couldn't really answer all of them. I didn't even know why some of her ideas didn't work with me. It made my head ache. I still had the first problem, and Randy there trying to help, blasting all these questions and suggestions at me faster than I could even think.
She gulped audibly, sniffing.
I got frustrated and told her to just leave me alone. But then she wanted to talk about why I wanted that, and we started having a fight in the kitchen. It woke Randy's dad up. We told him about how I wanted to go home, but my parents couldn't get me, so Mr. Eckert offered to do it.
Oh.
I accepted because I definitely couldn't stay then, not after throwing a racket and turning it into a big deal. But I feel awful. And embarrassed. Why did I yell at Randy and hurt her feelings? And I made her dad lose sleep by waking him up and having to drive me home. What do you say after that? I have no idea. I don't know where to start. And I don't want to make it worse by saying the wrong thing and fighting again. So, I'm not talking.
Terry, Randy isn't mad that you didn't want to stay or that you fought. She just wants to feel like you can talk to her. I mean, you can say whatever you want. She'll listen. Not talking to her at all is pretty much the only wrong way to go about it.
Terry lamented mournfully on the other end of the line. But he had a point. Unless she faced Miranda again, there would be no resolution. He looked at Cove, hunched over the phone, staring pensively into it and searching for a solution. This couldn't be solved with the other key party missing. But what if you brought them in? Your phone was still free. Yeah, I would never just call without saying anything. That, like, she was panicking from being bombarded with questions. If you all of a sudden you just hear Miranda's voice, like, she could just slam the phone like, nope, I'm out of here. I gotta at least give her the option. I could call Miranda. You could talk to her with us. She's like, ugh. Cove brightened up. The concerned furrow in his brow, which had taken root when Miranda first called, eased.
Well,
That could work. Terry, are you up for it?
She made a noise that wasn't a word, but nevertheless conveyed her hesitation and worry. But she brought it to a close with a decisive exhalation, as if pushing all negative thoughts from her body.
All right, I'll do it.
Cove nodded. Now that you'd received approval from everyone, you pulled out your phone and called Miranda. You set it to speaker and waited for her to pick up. Luckily, she did.
Hi.
Her voice was still distant, as if her thoughts were elsewhere, but it was loud enough for your needs. Hi. You're on speaker. Terry is on speaker too. On Cove's phone.
Oh.
She paused while she digested this information. You watched the phone screen, hoping that she wouldn't hang up as a result.
Really?
Yup, it's really me. Can you hear my voice all the way from your house to theirs and then mine?
I can.
You and Cove exchanged looks, waiting for the wall between them to break and wondering who would be the one to do it. As the quiet dragged on, you caught Cove chewing his cheek. He must have weighed up the same question as you, whether to encourage the conversation along or leave Miranda and Terry to resolve it themselves. The answer came in the form of one sniff, followed by another, from Cove's phone.
Sorry.
Randy, I hope you still like me.
What? You were the one acting as if you didn't like me.
Her tone was defensive, no doubt a result of her wounds from last night still being raw.
What?
No way! Everyone likes Randy. You're wonderful.
Your eyes met Cove's. His phone was tilted towards you, capturing the call indirectly. You moved your phone closer to his, hoping that the signal was strong enough to convey every nuance of tone. This is so funny. Not funny, but it's just like, it's ridiculous. Cove did likewise, bringing his cell right next to yours, even bumping against it as he shifted his grip.
I didn't know what to say. That's the only reason I wouldn't talk to you. If I had known the answer, I'd have told you right away.
Miranda murmured on the other end of the line.
You didn't want to stay. Anything I tried to do bothered you, and you could have told me you didn't know.
Yeah, I think I was angry at myself. I did a dumb thing, and I didn't want help with it. I wanted to be mad and just deal with it myself. It made me keep doing dumb things.
Oh.
When she spoke again, her voice was quiet, as tender and vulnerable as the words.
I'm sorry.
Staying up late watching stuff was all my fault. I had to find a way to fix it. That's what I thought anyway. But I should have given you space. I'm sorry for being so pushy and sensitive.
Hardly. Miranda Eckert having a flaw? I've never heard of such a crazy thing.
Miranda let out a ghost of a giggle. Cove cleared his throat.
Maybe you should call each other now?
Sorry.
Sure.
Can do. Thanks for giving me the kick in the butt to do this already. Randy Mandy, I'm gonna call you right now. Bye, Molly and Cove.
She hung up after squeezing in another quick bye, though not giving you or Cove room to respond in kind. Miranda laughed, the noise tinkling gently like wind chimes in a summer breeze.
You're really nice.
Thank you for listening and helping. I'm gonna hang up now so I can answer Terry's call. Bye.
Bye.
Bye! Miranda hung up, still chuckling softly as your call ended. All's well that ends well. The room felt emptier without the other voices in it. Cove expelled a sigh that crashed through the newly fallen silence. He dropped his arms to his sides, letting his head hang down like a puppet at rest.
Thank God.
Yep. Cove scratched at his face, his expression cloudy.
I think I need to find better ways for dealing with conflict because that was awful.
Yeah, I think that would help. We could all probably do better at that. Cove meekly smiled as he rubbed at his eyes, weariness creeping over him, and mumbled his next words.
We can talk about it another day.
Conflict resolution methods?
Huh?
Oh no, forget it.
Oh, the thing that you came for, like, when you first showed up. Your eyebrows rose, and then a light bulb went off in your head. Before Miranda called, didn't you say there was something you'd wanted to say? Cove's original visit had been thrown so off-kilter that it was a struggle to wind your memory back to when he first turned up. Now you did, though. You remembered that he had been perky when he had arrived this afternoon.
It was 84 years ago.
Was it good news? Cove brushed his hands against his now folded arms shyly.
Well, yeah, maybe. I'm not exactly sure it counts as news or even good. It just is what it is. I'm happy about it, though.
You were never going to be one to push someone else to talk when they seemed reticent. It's okay, but it sounds good. Cove chuckled awkwardly, a hand creeping up to ruffle the hair on the back of his head.
It's fine. If you want to hear, I can tell you.
He shifted on his feet as if a different posture might give him the support he needed for the conversation.
I didn't want to make it a big deal, but I kind of. Well, not kind of. I just know what my sexuality is now.
Oh! Oh!
A real subject change, huh?
True, it was unexpected, but you were excited that Cove had come to understand himself more, and glad he wanted to share that with you. You clapped your hands softly. Yay. And? Cove drew a breath, straightening up.
I'm demisexual. So, most of the time I don't really have those kinds of feelings. Physical wants and stuff. It's only in some situations, when I'm already really emotionally and romantically connected to someone, that I start to ever think about anything sexual, and it's only with them. I hadn't heard the term until pretty recently, and it just made a lot of sense once I knew what it meant. I had a word that fit how I felt.
Yeah.
And I'm panromantic, because I've never had a preference for a specific gender or anything. So, yeah.
You nodded as he spoke, completely understanding how he'd come to that conclusion. Cove looked down at the floor. Being so open and direct about a matter that personal, which you were sure he'd spent a long time trying to figure out, seemed to be kind of weird for him. Despite that, there was a small, proud smile on his face, and when he looked up again, his gaze was steadfast. All this talk of Cove's sexuality made you reflect about your own. Yep, still the same as before. Cove had known for years now. It was heartwarming that he had reached the point where he felt similarly capable of discussing his own. He felt even closer. You could tell that Cove felt like it had been an emotionally draining day that had now come to a close, everything wrapped up neatly with a bow on top. You'd had some good talks with your friends and with each other. Almost had a fight. A lot had been brought out into the light, and you'd come out of it not only knowing each other better, but yourself too. But there was still something that Cove didn't know, something that had gnawed at you many times over the years. You'd never told Cove about how you'd first met his dad. You'd always held it back from him, unsure of how he would take the revelation. His dad seemed to have done the same, as Cove didn't seem to have heard of it from Mr. Holden either. You know, out of the 3 times that we've had the option to confess, this has been, ironically, after all the nonsense with the fight, and us almost fighting, I think this is like the best time that it's ever gonna happen. So you know what? It's confession day. It was time to tell Cove about the deal that his father proposed. You were ready. Today was the day to tell Cove the full story of how you'd come to know him. Cove, you hooked his attention with the way you spoke his name. There's one more thing I'd like to talk about. Cove raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything. He was listening. Yep. Way back when we first met, it was actually your dad I'd met first. When you'd run off, he was waiting outside the house to see if you'd come back. He didn't find you, not then, but he did notice me as I was walking home. Cove nodded, eyebrows still raised. You could tell that he was trying to predict where this was going. You could also see that he was failing. He was really worried about you, Cove. He wanted to help. So he offered me $20 to be your friend. Cove's eyes widened into huge circles as you uttered the final sentence. His mouth hung open, ready to speak, but no words followed. He stood still, giving him time to process this revelation. You watched the layers of subterfuge being ripped away as his eyebrows rose higher on his forehead, followed by a deepening frown. And then Cove burst into a roar of laughter. Thank goodness.
That's horrible! He tried to bribe you? And you were what, 8? Dad, why? Oh my god.
Cove was bent over with laughter, one arm supporting his sides. I'm so glad you have a good relationship with your dad now, and you're just like, oh, Dad, of course you would. That is so dumb. Don't think badly of me. $20 was a lot at 8 years old, okay? He covered his eyes with the other hand, hiding the tears of mirth sprouting in the corners. You cracked a smile, relieved that he found the secret was bringing him so much amusement. Eventually, your giggles wound down. Cove wiped the last of the tears from his eyes, still grinning as he took wheezing breaths.
Wow.
He shook his head.
That's my dad. I guess there's always another Clifford surprise waiting in the wings. But $20, huh? What a cheapskate. Considering how much time we've spent together since I moved in, you were paid pennies on the hour. No, not even that much. Just 1 penny an hour. A fraction of a penny.
It seemed like a lot to me as a kid, but it really wasn't. Cove gave you a lopsided smile with a shake of his head.
Sorry.
You definitely got the short end of the stick.
I don't know about that. It was a labor of love. It was a really stressful spot. I like this. This is sweet. I got to grow up with you. It was the best deal I ever could have gotten. He stared at you, his previous expression swept away by shock before his face softened into an affectionate smile.
Me too.
I feel the same way about you, Molly.
His words were sincere, a genuine confirmation of his feelings towards you.
I really couldn't have asked for anything better.
No sooner than his words were out in the air, Cove ducked his head to hide the blush spreading over his face. The deal! Yay! I told Cove about the deal his dad wanted to make with me. I am free! The guilt is gone. You breathed a satisfied sigh of relief as a weight you'd been carrying from childhood was lifted from your shoulders. Cove shyly ran a hand up and down his arm, a gentle smile lifting his features, and you knew he was glad to be where he was today.
Thanks for telling me.
You're welcome.
Hey.
We should probably head downstairs soon. If your moms are still wanting everyone to get together.
They're still planning that? I thought they just forgot about us up here. Yeah, that's right. With a renewed spring in your step, you led the way out of your room. You got downstairs to find the others already assembled and waiting.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey! Good to see you both.
Hey!
Hey, Dad.
Here we were, trying to corral everyone into a group, but the two of you were already upstairs this whole time.
Of course we were together. You paid Molly to stick with me, or did you forget?
Oh, dang! He confronted him right off the bat! Let's go! The statement was meaningless to your family, who looked to each other for answers in vain. Mr. Holden, who got the message loud and clear, seemed embarrassed. He chuckled nervously, rubbing the back of his neck, and then his hand froze in place.
Huh?
Wait, when did you figure that out? You never mentioned it growing up.
Today. Just now. Molly told me.
He's like, ah! Mr. Holden's hand awkwardly slid off his neck as he stared at Cove, the answer catching him off guard. Out of the corner of your eye, you saw Mom mouthing questions at you. Everyone was waiting for an explanation. Similarly to his son, Mr. Holden broke into laughter and turned to address you, a hand laid over his chest.
I can't believe my partner in crime betrayed me. And after all these years, I thought we had something.
His voice was deliberately light, assuring you this was only a joke. He shook his head, throwing off the jest as he spoke seriously.
No worries.
I have to admit, I'm actually just amazed that you'd kept it under your hat this long.
Well, you did the same. Sorry.
Uh-huh. I want to know why my dad kept it secret all this time.
Mr. Holden looked back to Cove, lines forming on his forehead as his wide eyes signaled a wordless apology.
Can we hear exactly what the secret is? The suspense is killing us.
Right.
I'd better get everyone up to speed.
Well, this isn't an awkward conversation at all. He held up his hands, palms out, pacifying his audience, or perhaps holding them up as a shield in advance.
That first day I met Molly, I'd been worrying about Cove being alone for the summer.
Well,
There weren't a lot of kids around, and he wasn't exactly on the best terms with me at that time.
He glanced around at your family, gauging their responses.
I felt like this was my one shot. So I kind of offered her $20 to be friends with Cove, and added that she couldn't tell him about it.
Liz gasped. Ma was staring incredulously at Mr. Holden, while Mom's eyebrows had retreated to her hairline. You and Cove, already knowing the story, were the only ones unaffected.
But after a while, I really did honestly forget it even happened.
He raised his hands higher, now level with his shoulders. Not a bad idea, you thought. If Mom felt inclined to throw a cushion at him, he'd probably manage to block it in time.
I know that's bad, but I've had so many grand ideas over the years. It's hard to keep track of them all.
Cove smiled, placing his hands on his hips and shaking his head at his father's antics.
Seriously?
I can't believe you. Though, also, I totally can.
Your moms were less indulgent. The shock had ebbed away to displeasure. They're like, get out of my house. Mom's foot was tapping rapidly as she frowned at the next door neighbor, while Ma had her arms crossed over her chest and her lips pursed.
I'm sorry, Molly, and I'm sorry to your parents, too. I was way out of bounds.
Don't worry about it. Everything worked out. Your moms gave each other that look, where they seemed to communicate with eyes alone.
Alright, well, that's that then. And it won't happen again.
absolutely.
It definitely won't.
Alright.
Good.
It was a little surprising that they were letting him off the hook. But on the other hand, it was a long time ago now, and you were sure your moms remember those painful early days of Cove's arrival too. Mr. Holden wasn't a potential bad influence anymore, so a lecture would be pretty moot. Instead, your ma gave him a lenient smile.
In that case,
Now that it's settled, why don't we find something to do?
Nods of agreement cascaded through the group in a couple waves at the suggestion. Mr. Holden's shoulders slumped with a release of tension. He brought his hands down, tucking them away into his pockets. The two families spent the rest of the afternoon together, chatting and catching up. Though you'd accepted Mr. Holden's apology, Cove caught up for lost time by pitching the odd jab at his dad. Your moms didn't seem amused, the news still too fresh, but you enjoyed finally being able to laugh about it freely. You truly relaxed, knowing that there were no longer any secrets between the two families. You felt freed, and yet simultaneously more tied together than you had been before. Yay, and the truth shall set you free. Huzzah. Oh my goodness, that was... I feel drained like that actually happened to me. Oh my goodness, but the air is clear. We're good. Can't believe we finally fessed up to that after all this time. Wonderful. Great. Delightful. Until next time.